The divine command theorist tries to tell us what moral rightness is. They say that an act is right when God commands it, an act is wrong when God forbids it. Notice, we didn't say here that according to the divine command theorist, an act is right when God believes it is right. Divine command theorists shouldn't say that because that's not divine command theory. It doesn't really tell us God's relation to morality. If God exists and God is infallible, then if he believes something is right, it's going to be right. Just as if God is infallible and he believes that Sam is a bachelor, then Sam is a bachelor. But God's believing that Sam is a bachelor is not what makes Sam a bachelor. We know that a bachelor is an unmarried adult male. That's what makes Sam a bachelor. In the same way, just being told that an act is right when God believes it is right doesn't tell us what makes an act right or wrong, how God is related to what is right or wrong. So we want to get rid of this believes part and instead say an act is right when God commands it, an act is wrong when God forbids it. The divine command theorist is identifying rightness with God's commands. They're one and the same thing. God's commanding something is the exact same thing as an act's being morally right, just as 2 plus 2 is the exact same thing as 4. Or the President of the United States is the exact same thing as Barack Obama. Since that's the case, it can't be that all these different moral theories are correct. Many of my students think that they can adopt one theory for one situation and another theory for another situation, but that turns out to be very inconsistent. And here's one reason why. Let's suppose that divine command theory is true, that an act is right when God commands it. God's commanding something is identical to that act's being right. And let's also suppose that subjectivism is true. My approving of some act is identical to its being right. They're one and the same thing. And let's say that God's commanding something, let's call that A. Let's call rightness C. Let's call my approving of something B. And again, moral rightness we'll call C. Why are we doing this? Well, it's easier to consider this problem by thinking it more like a math problem, oddly enough. So the first line tells us that A is equal to C. God's commanding something is the exact same thing as that act's being right. This line here tells us that my approving of some act is identical to that act's being right. Okay? So suppose that you say, well, divine command theory is true, but so is subjectivism. Now, look at this problem, or these two claims. If A equals C and B equals C, what follows? Well, what follows is that A equals B. That is, God's commanding something and your approving of it are one and the same thing because apparently you are God. So unless you believe you are God, you don't want to say that both divine command theory and subjectivism are true. At most, only one of them can be true. Water is H2O. Wherever you find water, you find H2O. Divine command theorist is saying moral rightness is the same thing as being commanded by God. Whenever you find one, you find the other. They're one and the same thing. So it's inconsistent to try to adopt a whole bunch of different theories because these theories are trying to identify what makes an act right or wrong in the first place.